News tonight, a Malaysia Airlines flight.
MH370.
Flight MH370
disappeared en route to Beijing.
70, we are ready, requesting flight number 310 to Beijing.
For more than a decade, the world has been searching for a phantom, a Boeing 777 that vanished into thin air, leaving behind only questions and a trail of shattered families. But what if the most important question in aviation's biggest mystery wasn't about where the plane went, but about the state of mind of the man who was flying it? The official story has always been one of uncertainty, but some of the most disturbing details of what happened in the 24 hours before MH370 disappeared point toward a deliberate act. As discussions for new searches continue, expert analysis of the available data still paints a chilling picture. Tonight, we're laying out the most troubling facts, the buried evidence, and the darkest theory that just won't go away. The disappearance. On the night of March 8, 2014, Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 lifted off from Kuala Lumpur, headed for Beijing. It was a routine red-eye flight with 227 passengers and 12 crew members on board.
What happened to flight MH370? On March the 8th, 2014, the Malaysian Airlines flight disappeared en route to Beijing.
For the first 40 minutes, everything seemed perfectly normal. The plane climbed to its cruising altitude, the cabin lights dimmed, and the pilots communicated with air traffic control. The final voice communication from the cockpit was calm, routine, and almost haunting in its simplicity. Good night, Malaysian 370.
Good night, Malaysian 370.
Seconds later, the aircraft's transponder, the device that broadcasts its identity and position to civilian radar, was turned off. The plane vanished from the screens of air traffic controllers. It happened right at the invisible handover point between Malaysian and Vietnamese airspace, a blind spot where it could disappear without immediately setting off alarms. But it didn't just vanish. Military radar, which works differently than civilian systems, kept tracking an unidentified aircraft. This ghost on the radar made a series of sharp, deliberate turns, deviating completely from its planned path to Beijing. It first turned back across the Malaysian peninsula, then banked northwest over the Strait of Malacca, flying for another hour before it finally flew beyond the military radar's range. For 7 more hours, the plane flew on, silent, invisible. The only trace it left was a series of 7 automated pings sent from the plane's satellite communication system to a satellite owned by the British company Inmarsat. These pings were never meant for tracking. They were just simple electronic handshakes confirming the system was still online. But by analysing tiny shifts in their frequency, investigators calculated 2 huge arcs where the plane could have been when it sent its final signal. One stretching north into Central Asia and the other south into the desolate expanse of the southern Indian Ocean. Given the amount of fuel on board, the southern arc was considered the only plausible route. The plane had likely flown until its tanks were dry. Somewhere in one of the most remote and treacherous stretches of water on Earth, 239 souls were lost. The question wasn't just where, but why. And that's where the story takes a darker turn, leading investigators to look at the one man who had absolute control of the aircraft. The turn. The plane's deviation from its flight path wasn't an accident. It wasn't the result of a catastrophic failure or an explosion. The turns were precise and appeared to follow known waypoints, almost as if they were designed to avoid detection. The official 2018 safety report concluded that the plane's controls were likely manipulated by hand to take it off course, but investigators couldn't determine who was responsible. However, a significant amount of circumstantial evidence has always pointed in one direction: the cockpit. Specifically to the 53-year-old pilot in command, Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah. He was a senior pilot with over 18,000 hours of flight experience and had been with Malaysia Airlines since 1981. To the public, he was a dedicated professional, but as investigators began to scrutinize his life, his relationships, and his state of mind, a more troubling picture started to emerge. What they found would form the basis of the most disturbing theory of all. The investigation. Disturbing detail number 1, the pilot's simulator. The first major red flag was discovered in Captain Zahari's home. He was an avid aviation enthusiast and had built an elaborate custom flight simulator. When investigators from the FBI and Malaysian police analysed the hard drives, they made a chilling discovery. Among the hundreds of routes he had simulated, they recovered deleted data points from less than a month before the flight that showed a simulated trip deep into the remote southern Indian Ocean. The simulated path ended only when the virtual plane ran out of fuel. This wasn't a standard flight path between two airports. It was a journey into oceanic oblivion. For years, Malaysian officials publicly downplayed this finding, with the Inspector General of Police once claiming reports on it were untrue. The official investigation report noted that a forensic analysis concluded there were no unusual activities besides game-related simulations. Australian officials, however, later confirmed that the simulator had indeed been used to plot a course into the southern Indian Ocean. They also cautioned that this finding only shows the possibility of planning and doesn't prove what happened on the night of the disappearance. Still, the implications were profound. It was the first piece of potential evidence to suggest premeditation, transforming the narrative from a possible accident or hijacking into a suspected case of mass murder-suicide orchestrated by the pilot himself. The investigation, disturbing detail. Number 2, the 24 hours before. As investigators dug deeper, the 24 hours before the flight became a critical focus. Reports emerged suggesting Zaharie was facing personal challenges, including marital strain. But perhaps the most scrutinized event happened on March 7th, 2014, the day before the disappearance. Zaharie was a vocal supporter of Malaysian opposition leader Anwar Ibrahim. On that day, Anwar was sentenced to 5 years in prison on sodomy charges, a verdict widely seen by international observers as politically motivated. Friends and family reported that Zaharie was deeply upset by this news. Hours later, he would report for duty to fly MH370. While there's no direct evidence linking this event to his actions on the plane, many have speculated it could have contributed to a distressed state of mind. The police investigation also noted that Zaharie appeared to have made no social or professional plans for after March 8th, as if he didn't expect to have a future. This portrait of a man potentially in crisis is deeply unsettling. Aviation experts have drawn disturbing parallels to other incidents, like Silk Air Flight 185 in 1997, where a pilot, facing personal and financial ruin, is believed to have deliberately crashed his plane, killing all 104 people on board. A panel of experts assembled for Australia's 60 Minutes proposed a chilling theory that Zaharie may have depressurized the cabin shortly after the final good night message. This would have quickly incapacitated everyone on board without an oxygen mask. The pilot, wearing his own mask, would have been left alone in control of a silent airplane for the next 7 hours. Some analysts like Larry Vance even believe Zaharie made a final emotional detour over his hometown of Penang for one last look before turning south towards the Indian Ocean. The investigation, disturbing detail number 3, evasive maneuvers. While no explosive new data sets have appeared, continued analysis of the original radar and satellite data has consistently pointed to one thing: this was no ghost flight. The evidence makes it clear that the transponder was manually turned off from inside the cockpit. There's no sign of a struggle, an explosion, or a fire. Analysis showed the plane was under active manual control, making a U-turn so sharp it would have been impossible for the autopilot to perform on its own. The plane's movements even seemed intentionally evasive. An analysis of the flight path shows the aircraft flying along the border of Malaysia and Thailand, weaving in and out of their respective airspaces. This is a technique that could confuse air traffic controllers on both sides about who was responsible for the aircraft, suggesting a pilot with intimate knowledge of the region's radar coverage and its limitations. This data strongly challenges theories that the pilots were somehow incapacitated early on. Someone was flying that plane for 7 hours. Someone decided to turn off the communications, execute evasive maneuvers, and fly the aircraft to one of the most remote corners of the planet. And all available circumstantial evidence keeps pointing back to the man who said, "Good night, Malaysian 370.
Good night, Malaysian 370.
Addressing counter-arguments and conspiracies. In the vacuum of hard evidence, conspiracy theories have thrived. Some of the most popular include a remote cyber hijacking, a fire that incapacitated the crew, or that the plane was secretly flown to a military base. let's address the most persistent ones. The theory of a cargo fire, possibly involving lithium-ion batteries, doesn't quite fit the evidence. A fire severe enough to knock out communications would have likely caused catastrophic damage long before the 7-hour flight was over. The plane's ability to send satellite pings for hours shows its electrical systems were largely intact. The idea of a remote hijacking has been consistently dismissed by cybersecurity and aviation experts as technically impossible for a Boeing 777 in 2014. The aircraft's systems simply couldn't be controlled from the outside like that. The theory that the plane was shot down is contradicted by the debris that has been found. A mid-air explosion would have left a concentrated debris field in the South China Sea. Instead, the few pieces of confirmed wreckage, like the flaperon found on Réunion Island, washed ashore thousands of miles away, which is consistent with ocean drift from a crash in the southern Indian Ocean. These findings, combined with radar data showing a controlled flight, make an external attack highly improbable. While these theories offer dramatic alternatives, they tend to crumble under the weight of technical evidence. The simplest explanation, however disturbing, is the one that best aligns with the flight path, the disabled communications, and the simulator data. It was an act committed by someone in the cockpit. The new search and conclusion. After years of silence, hope for a new search for MH370 has been renewed. In late 2024 and early 2025, the Malaysian government announced it had agreed in principle to a new no-find, no-fee proposal from the American robotics company Ocean Infinity. The company would only be paid its reported $70 million fee if the wreckage is located. Based on new expert analysis, a proposed search area of around 15,000 square kilometers in the southern Indian Ocean was identified. Using a fleet of autonomous underwater vehicles, Ocean Infinity began a search in February 2025. However, after an initial phase, the search was suspended in April 2025 due to weather conditions, with plans to resume later in the year. Another search phase took place, but on March 8, 2026, exactly 12 years since the plane vanished, it was announced that the effort hadn't yielded any findings that confirm the location of the aircraft wreckage. Ocean Infinity has stated its commitment to finding the aircraft has not ended. More than a decade later, we're still left with a ghost story, a story about a plane that flew for 7 hours into oblivion, possibly piloted by a man in the throes of a profound personal crisis. We're left with the chilling data from his flight simulator, the radar evidence of deliberate maneuvers, and the heartbreaking silence from 239 souls. The failure of the latest search is another profound blow, a reminder of the vastness of our oceans and the limits of our technology. For the families, it is another chapter of agonizing uncertainty. They are trapped in a frozen grief, unable to mourn, unable to move on, forever waiting for an answer that may never come. The story of MH370 isn't just an aviation mystery, it's a human tragedy of unimaginable scale. It revealed critical gaps in aircraft tracking and safety, some of which are still being addressed today. But most disturbingly, it's a chilling reminder that even the most complex systems we build can be vulnerable to the oldest and most unpredictable variable of all, the human element. The final truth of what happened in the cockpit of Flight 370 remains locked away, somewhere in the silent, crushing depths of the Indian Ocean. And the search for that truth continues. The disappearance of MH370 has spawned countless theories. Based on the evidence presented, what do you think happened to the 239 souls on board? Share your thoughts and theories in the comments below. And if you want to stay updated on this enduring mystery, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications.